Stories of love and life. Stories that entertain and inspire. And the best stories are the ones that happen to be true. Every Friday night, Jack Devnarain is live in conversation with an iconic South African personality who shares the true stories that shape their remarkable lives. Join us for reality radio as real as it gets. From 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. every Friday night. Only on 919.
Hey everyone, happy Friday. You're listening to 919. My name is Jack Devnarain and this is Reality Radio. It's as real as it gets every Friday night when we have a guest live in studio to tell us about the incredible stories that shaped their magnificent lives. Tonight, my very good friend, powerlifter, strength athlete, fitness model, social media influencer, shapeshifter, what else do we call you? Animated superhero. We had other words for you. Haroun Pietersen, everybody. Welcome, Haroun Pietersen.
Thank you so much, Jack. It's an honor to be here, firstly, and a privilege to be able to sit in the seat with you and have this conversation this evening.
Buddy, it's been a pleasure. We've been waiting to have this conversation for a long time. Because, you know, there's something about strength training, weightlifting, powerlifting, and the mentality that goes with that. And, you know, I've been following your career. I'm so incredibly proud of what you've achieved. In the last year, what was your last comp? You were at your very first World Powerlifting Championships, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yes, I was in Dryskenkai, Lithuania for South Africa, representing South Africa at the World Championships for powerlifting this year.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. What a journey. So, did you ever think of yourself as a powerlifter, or is that something that you kind of worked your way to?
So I think it was a little bit of evolution through my sporting days and my sporting career, and also just activity, because I used to lift recreationally heavy and I never competed in a formal competition. So last year we went to the Northwest because we missed the Gauteng entry, and we actually tried our first powerlifting competition.
Yeah.
And we won the gold at the Northwest. The first outing at the powerlifting competitions.
Okay, so you know what, you and I talk, we can talk powerlifting all day, but many of our listeners and viewers on YouTube don't really have a reference point for what is powerlifting. So let's just go through it, because I know that's, you know, powerlifting is you made it part of your pronouns, you know.
Of course, yes.
Haroun Pietersen, SBD.
That's it, yes. And SPD is one of the terms that we hold near and dear to our hearts as powerlifters, because it's exactly what we perform. So SPD, the S meaning the squat, which is the discipline where you put the heavy weight on your back.
Yep.
And, you know, part of life is ups and downs, and unfortunately for powerlifters, that is squats.
Yes.
So we squat heavy weights and we hope to get back up when we go down.
Yeah. And then the B?
So the B is the bench press, which is also for the big boys, because the bench press is quite a difficult exercise. It's very difficult to drive that bar back up off your chest.
Yeah.
And it's also a little bit of a flexibility exercise, so we tend to bend a little bit also as our athletes grow.
Yes, and then the final one, the D.
The deadlift, it's the most covenant one, but I think out of the three, the squat is the most challenging, but the deadlift is the exclusive accessory one.
That's
the people want
brute force
they
one,
want to smile and they want to show off that they pull that bar off the ground. Doesn't matter how much weight it is, you feel a sense of accomplishment when you get that bar off the ground and up to your lockout position.
You know, people don't realize, or their assumption is that in lifting heavy weights, that you can be injured very easily, and that, you know, you're going to pull something. And I've been lifting now for the better part of 30 years, 26 years to be precise. And the only injuries that I picked up were injuries when I knew I hadn't warmed up properly. So mobility is a big part of powerlifting, right?
Massively so. So being able to understand the functionality of the human anatomy is important, because what you do and how you prepare for these events, how you prepare for training, it's all a journey and also a skill that is acquired over time. So you learn different techniques and you learn different approaches that are applicable, and that's what keeps you safe in the sport, is because you are practicing a discipline and not just going out and thinking you can just pick something up.
Is powerlifting the same as Olympic weightlifting?
I would say there's a variation from a standpoint where there are certain things that are integrative, but the mobility is the biggest or the difference between the two. Where with weightlifting, if you have no mobility, you won't be able to do it. With powerlifting, you could possibly get away with it.
Yes, that's very true. And of course, the big difference is that in weightlifting, you've got to have, it's an overhead kind of lift,
Of course,
where
yes.
you are carrying the weight above your head for the final phase of that lift. In order to
Yes.
achieve the lift, the weight has got to be overhead.
And I think a little bit of both is also being a little bit more than a normal human would be. A little bit. There's a little bit of a crazy factor, if I could say that. So we are not normal people, unfortunately, and we have to express ourselves in certain ways. And one of the safe ways to do so is picking up heavy things.
Amazingly, that's true. When I talk to my buddies who, some of them play golf, some of them still play recreational rugby and soccer and cricket, every weekend you'll see them moaning about some pain or strain or something like that. And I say to them, guys, you got to be safe. Come and learn to lift. And give up all this nonsense of yours. Give up these crazy sports that you do. Stop this chest nonsense.
And I think that the one of the realizations as a power athlete is that we don't know the difference between being not sore. Because we are entirely we are living life in pain, but we'll still have a smile on our face, which is the crazy part, I think, for me, and a little bit of an alarm sometimes, because we train 5, 6, 7 days a week, and if we have a rest day, it bothers us. It's a bit of a problem for us as athletes,
and also because lifters will always be lifting within a very close proximity of their absolute physical limit.
That's it. So we're always pushing to become the next best and the next year. We're always fighting our own battle and an internal battle where it's always me versus me.
That's the point. We're always competing against ourselves.
And I think that is also essential to understanding that when you have that discipline where you continue to be your own competition, you are always fighting a battle to beat yourself.
Haroun, we can carry on talking about powerlifting all day. We're going to take a break. When we come back, let's talk weights.
Perfect.
The Feel Good Drive with Nicole De Silva.
Do you know that homes in Nigeria get built with generators? They're not even trying to be fighting with their provider.
Every house there that they had literally had a generator. You could literally hear the generator on the show.
Oh no.
Just running and running and running and while they're actually having a conversation.
Monday to Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. only on 919.
They say nothing ever lasts. But what about the Fast and Furious franchise? Or showing Anaconda 2 for Friday Action Night? Or how Brooke is still forgiving Ridge Forrester like 50 seasons in? And then there's Burger King's Whopper Meal deal, which is still going strong. So get your hands on 2 flame-grilled Whoppers topped with the freshest ingredients, plus 2 portions of crispy golden fries and 2 bottomless drinks for only 130 Rand. Only at Burger King, where good things do last.
919 has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, programming that is not harmful to children and that does not amount to hate speech, or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. If you think we're not living up to that code, you can inform the BCCSA. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa to PO Box 412365, Craig Hall 2024, or email the BCCSA at napsa.co.za. For more information, visit the bccsa.co.za. We all love a good story. Stories of love and life. Stories that entertain and inspire. And the best stories are the ones that happen to be true. Every Friday night, Jack Devnarain is live in conversation with an iconic South African personality who shares the true stories that shape their remarkable lives. Join us for reality radio as real as it gets. From 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. every Friday night, only on 919.
And we're back. It's reality radio with me, Jack Devnarain, on a Friday night. Thanks, Mataba. I promised that we were going to do more weights, but you know what? Already people are jumping up and down saying, we've already heard that. Enough. Okay, we're not going to do any more weights.
Okay.
I want to talk about something you mentioned in your introduction, which was how you discovered powerlifting. as part of your journey as an athlete. So what was that journey of you being an athlete? Where did it start? What kind of athletic disciplines are we talking about?
So it all started in my primary schooling career where, you know, we as children are exposed to the athletics environment where you go and do your track and your field days and you learn about these disciplines and sports that we do. You do the inter-house competition and then you go do your schooling in national or provincial level competitions where you then qualify to go and do your knockout competition to qualify for the provincial level. So it's all a culmination of a journey of where you start. And I was a shot putter in my primary school days.
Right.
So that's where I started off with my sports. So the shot put then qualified me to get into the provincial trial level. And through that, we qualified to compete in the engine championships when I was in grade 7. So I was then able to represent the province on a level of a championship level, where I was then doing not only track event or field events, but also did a track event where I actually ran a 100-meter sprint.
Yeah.
And for a big boy, I wasn't exactly the quickest. So we were training sprints, and I actually managed to do a 13.2 second sprint over the 100 meters, which actually blew me away.
Incredibly fast.
At that age, I was blown away by myself.
Well, yeah, I see that kind of time, you really should be doing much closer to your end of your secondary years.
Yeah.
As you're getting bigger and stronger and faster. And you were quite young when you did that.
Yeah, I was 13 years old, so I was competing on the provincial level at 13 years old, doing shot put and doing sprints. So it was a lot of fun.
And did you have what was the coaching system like in school? Did you have people? Was there a competitive spirit amongst you and your buddies in school or
so
in
I
the
think
zone?
one of the things from the primary school level that carried over into the high school level of track and field is that we actually had professional sports people within the school. So our teachers were namely, it was Mr. Jacobs, who was the English teacher, and he was also a Navy diver. So he was well versed in the physical disciplines and how to get prepared for sports. And then we were also blessed with one of the provincial leaders in terms of the Western Province Rugby Union. So Christopher Solomons, known as Chippy Solomons, was also a high school teacher at our high school. So he was very well versed with physical training and preparing people for rugby. So he was, at the time, he was managing the under-21 Western Province team.
Yeah.
So he was very well involved with the level of sports and also the standard that we were training at.
You see, so there's a culture then of sports, of activity, physical fitness, conditioning, right from the time that you were in school then, right?
It was also a part of a lifestyle and using the sports to keep enhancing myself in a sense, and also keeping away from the exposure to what was happening in the environment I was growing up in. So it was also a tool of escape to a sort, where it was a healthy escape where we steer clear of the challenges from where I grew up and what kind of neighborhood I grew up in. So it's also a reality check for myself where I was able to enhance myself through the sports disciplines and creating a disciplined mindset moving forward with my sporting.
But you had that community that maybe it was a little threatening. There was strife. There was confrontation.
Of course, yes.
Okay, so you were faced with both those realities.
Correct.
Why did you decide to involve yourself then in the sports?
It was a matter of I'm going to get involved in gangsterism, drugs and violence, or I'm going to use that energy in a positive and constructive manner to put discipline and instill principles in the way I conduct myself going forward as a young person growing up in a township or a urban area like Mitchell's Plain. I grew up in a place called Westridge, Mitchell's Plain, and I used to walk to school through the Rocklands area to a school called Cedar High when I started my high schooling career. And many people that went to this particular school were not the most wholesome characters. It was also a mixture of everybody from the Cape Flats in one place. So when you do that to a bunch of teenagers that are hormonal and they tend to become lashing, or rather they become aggressive.
Yeah.
And they treat you in such a way that you are supposed to behave in fear. And I was never going to behave in fear because of my disciplines. And I knew what I was capable of through my sport. And it also gave me that discipline where I was able to use my body as a tool when I needed to.
Yeah.
So it's also coming back to my father being in the police force and the South African
Okay.
police force itself. So we were raised with a different discipline and a different approach, because in all sense of it, we were also trained to defend ourselves as boys. And it was a very important thing for us growing up, because in the environments we were placed in, there were always going to be people who would take a chance.
Yeah. Yeah. They'd take any advantage if they could, and if you had to back down for a second.
Exactly that. And
Yeah.
it's not a nice thing to have to get to that point. So by all means, we for myself personally, I would avoid it, because I knew what the end product was going to be. And having that kind of capability, it puts you into perspective, and it gives you a conscious mind of what you can and can't do.
Yeah. So paint a clear picture then of what that part of Mitchell's Plain was like for you growing up. You're a young man. You have dreams, you have ideas, you got school, your family, and you got sport. So was it that kind of environment that was conducive? Or were there, I mean, even back in those years now, we'd watch TV, right, in the evening.
Yes.
There wasn't much more than that. There was
Exactly,
maybe
yes.
the corner shop.
Of
We'd
course.
see some of the buddies and...
So one of the things I was also drawn into was academics. So as a kid, I did things like the Maths Olympiad, where
Oh,
I used to
really?
participate
Oh, wow.
in mathematics exams. I used to go to university to go and write exams. I scored the third position in the country in grade 5 for mathematics.
Wow.
So there was a little bit of academics involved as well, which also drew my attention quite closely to learning and understanding. So a lot of my career with the sport, I was also using those advantages. So mathematics was an integrative part of my life that was used in order to calculate certain situations and to
Okay.
understand strategy. So using numbers and using the tools of sport, that it enhances your body in such a way that you are able to do things that normal people can't or picture or see or be able to perform. And that I think was special for me as well, because it gave me a little bit of a competitive edge when it came to my sport.
I like that, and especially what you describe as an integrated life. One of the funniest things that I used to see and enjoy and always chuckle about is I used to go to a gym where the parking's on the ground floor. You enter, there's a stairway to the gym, which is on the first floor, and there's a lift. And to see people going to gym but taking the lift, and then
I think I
up.
would have probably had the same approach as you. That's like a small warm up getting into the into the facility at least.
And the reason I have a good laugh about that is because you want to say to them, check your purpose for
Yeah,
going to this
exactly,
gym, right?
yes.
Check your purpose. Like if you're going to spend half an hour on the treadmill, chances are you could have started by using the stairs instead of the lift.
One flight of warm ups.
Right, exactly. But for me, that's what it means to integrate your fitness into your life.
Of course, yes.
If you insist on separating and partitioning off, this is when I go to gym, and this is when I'm just thoroughly not interested in any kind of fitness whatsoever, then you never actually get the benefits of fitness
And that's
lifestyle.
it. And I think also what comes with that is that the difference between somebody who goes to the gym and somebody who is an athlete is that we live it as a lifestyle. We don't just have it as an accessory to life.
Yeah, that's a big deal. That really is. How does it fit in then with your life, with your work? I mean,
It's difficult because you have to maintain the discipline and also the consistency, because without consistency you won't be able to progressively improve yourself through what you're doing as a craft and an art. At all circumstances, you cannot afford to make excuses.
Yep.
And that is something that you need to live by. The reality of it is that you work extensive hours, but when it's time to do your work for yourself, you cannot neglect that. Because I think what's important is that we also need to understand that working on ourselves is just as important as doing a job.
That's very true. because you got to keep working on yourself as that tool, as you described.
That's
earlier.
it. And if you want to be a professional sports person, doesn't come easy. It becomes a matter of discipline and a matter of sacrifice too. So there's a lot of times where I have to walk away from certain things because I have my discipline that I need to take care of. And once my discipline is completed, then we can think about having fun.
Yeah.
The reality of it is that cannot come second. If you want to be the best, you have to put that at the front of your development.
Do we get enough sponsorship and things like that kind of support when we are competing nationally, internationally? Do we know enough about the different codes of sport? Like if I was a sponsor and you came to me and you said, Jack, I'm competing internationally, I need to cover my flights, accommodation and entry fee, and I'll say, oh, that sounds amazing, what sport is it? And then you'll say powerlifting, and I'll say, I don't know that.
Exactly that. And that's the sad reality, is that us as South African representatives, we're going out into the international forums, international levels, and we're representing the country, but there is no backing for us in the sport.
Yeah.
We have to pay every single expense from our own pocket, and we look at fundraising, we look at initiatives, we look at businesses, we look at opportunities within our empowerment organizations that we work with. We look at opportunities from our business units and what we do as a life for work, because we are in the empowerment industry where we empower youth, and we employ and we educate, and we try and create an environment for the youth of South Africa to find itself and to create future leaders. But us ourselves as the leaders, we still have these battles that we have to face.
Yeah, that's the tough one, and I realize that, powerlifting is not alone. There are so many sports that, you really wish. For example, I mean, there's Olympic weightlifting, right?
Yes.
And we're going to have that coming up in another few weeks.
Yes.
And you want to know, like, have we prepared our South African weightlifting team enough? Do they have the support that they need to compete at that level?
It's even the equipment, because that's the grassroots program that we look at. So an average previously disadvantaged individual, or even a kid from the Cape Flats, a kid from Khayelitsha, a kid from Nyanga in Cape Town, how are they going to be able to participate in these sports if they can't even get the basic equipment together to be able to participate and do it so safely? Because that's also the hazards that come with not having the right people to teach you what to do.
That's a big deal. Just a few days ago, I heard a speech by the new Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Minister Gayton McKenzie, and you can see that his priority is to make sure that young sportsmen and women in rural areas and in townships start getting access, which I think is an amazing initiative, something all South Africans should get behind. It's Reality Radio. We're going to take a short break. Back with Haroun Pietersen.
They say nothing ever lasts. But what about the Fast and Furious franchise? Or showing Anaconda 2 for Friday Action Night? Or how Brooke is still forgiving Ridge Forrester like 50 seasons in? And then there's Burger King's Whopper Meal deal, which is still going strong. So get your hands on 2 flame-grilled Whoppers topped with the freshest ingredients, plus 2 portions of crispy golden fries and 2 bottomless drinks for only 130 Rand. Only at Burger King, where good things do last.
We all love a good story. Stories of love and life. Stories that entertain and inspire. And the best stories are the ones that happen to be true. Every Friday night, Jack Devnarain is live in conversation with an iconic South African personality who shares the true stories that shape their remarkable lives. Join us for Reality Radio, as real as it gets. From 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. every Friday night, only on 919.
We're back, Reality Radio, with Haroun in the chair, in the special guest of honor tonight. Tell me, you mentioned your dad earlier, and you said he was a cop.
Correct, yes.
Now, as a young man, you're looking at your dad. He's got his uniform, he's got all this responsibility, and inevitably, you are seen as a community leader.
Of course, yes.
So what impact did that have on you growing up?
So look, it was one of those things that was special for us as well. My father was one of the very first policemen of the Mitchells Plain area when it was still a police house and not a police station of Mitchells Plain, when it was still a house in Lentegeur that they used to operate from before they had an official police station in the area.
And a jail and all of that.
Yes, so there was a little bit of a grassroots development situation. But I think also what was important for us is seeing that community presence and seeing the respect that was shown to him by many characters throughout his career. And it didn't matter where we would would move around within our local area, there would always be somebody greeting, and they would be calling him on his rank, and they would be showing that kind of respect to him, because he was, in your own words, a community leader.
Yeah. And of course, you also get those guys. I used to get it too a lot when I was in the police. When somebody calls you by your rank and your name, but they do it sarcastically.
Of course,
because they're trying to get a reaction. They're trying to get a reaction from you.
But that's also where you as well as I know that it's a discipline thing where people will always look for that reaction from a public figure or a leader in the environment. And it's also one of those cool things that you see that people will always try and do to people that they know are leaders, because they know that is why they do these things. And it's also if you look at it in one way, it's also a sign of respect that they show, even them trying to joke about it or create a little bit of sarcasm with it. But the reality of it is that they've stood up and took notice.
That's right. You know, when I saw this, and I was going to get to it a little later, in talking about social media, right? In the last few weeks, from the time that Minister Gayton McKenzie was announced that he was now minister of this portfolio, I don't know if you were tracking it, but I was watching social media and it was going crazy. People just wanted to step up to say, you know nothing about sports, arts and culture.
Imagine.
It was crazy.
You're telling
Just to let
somebody
him
that
know.
could live it and wants to live it. And I think that's one of the most positive realities for us as a minority of the colored community where we come from. There was never advocates to enhance us as a community. There were never advocates to say that this community needs upliftment, this community needs support, this community needs sport, this community needs development. So the reality of it is that we have somebody that is a custodian of our communities, and a custodian that comes from our communities, which is more important, because you understand the basics and the struggles and the survival that you have to fight for when it comes to coming from the Cape Flats and coming from dominant or predominant areas that are gang-ridden, drug-driven, and are run by chaos instead of law.
That's a real thing, because, and the minister reflected on it a few times. I remember when he first came out to say he's going to make spinning an official sport. And again, social media goes wild and it's just complete mockery and derision and laughing at him. And nobody took the time to ask, but why spinning?
Yes.
And there was another speech that he had made, a presentation just last week, where he explained he attends some of these spinning events.
Yes.
And he says whenever he attends, for example, he might go to a soccer game, he'll see that the stadium is not completely full.
Yes.
He can go and watch rugby, stadium is not completely full. He goes to spinning and he says there are tens of thousands of people there.
Yes.
And what he's able to show, and this was the important thing, is that at the time that these events take place, there's full participation. There's less violence going on in the places that are known to be violent.
Correct.
There are fewer reports of violence, fewer reports of shooting. And that's when I realized what his intention and the strategy is.
Yes, it's a positive community upliftment exercise.
Yeah.
And what happens in these things is children, for example, especially boys but also girls, they love cars.
Yeah.
We grow up loving cars. We grew up in an era of South African cars that is very special. We had the 325i's.
Oh, legend,
we
yes.
had the 30S Ford Cortina. We had
The Superboss.
We had the Sierra XR8.
Oh,
like these are
absolutely.
special cars that were made nowhere else in the world.
yeah.
And one of the realities is that Mitchell's Plain, we had Strandfontein Pavilion growing up. So on a Saturday night, everybody within our local community would pull up at Strandfontein Pavilion, which was a spinning event every weekend. It was illegal.
Right.
Everybody went there. We went to go until the police pulled up to disperse everybody.
Yeah.
We would have so much of fun spinning cars. It would be Germany versus Japan every weekend.
Amazing. Okay.
So it would be the Fords versus the Skylines. It was an energy that you couldn't replace.
Yeah.
And I think that is also why Gayton loves it so much, because it brings a sense of community. You could be a rival gang member at that event, but you're shouting for your best friend that's out there performing, and everybody's clapping for each other. It's not a matter of I can't support you, you can't support me. Everybody supports each other, and I think that's also the community that comes with it.
That's a big deal here. And I mean, I haven't been to an event like that. I'd love to see it for its spectacle, its energy. And also interesting point that he made was that people are more likely if you create a sporting environment of spinning, people are more likely to be spending money on their cars than on drugs.
100%, because it's an expensive sport too.
Yes,
Tires are not cheap, you know.
oh, that's right. I mean, you're shredding them.
And I think that's also one of the beauties of it, is that creating tools and environments for kids to focus their energy into, and creating positive things for them to focus their energy into, will create future leaders and future sports people, future mechanics, future engineers. Because remember, all of these things are a sport that people are practicing and evolving. And at the same time, you're creating new ways of doing things. So creating future thinkers and future creators are coming from these kinds of sports, especially engineering. If you look at the gearboxes, the engines, the revving, the management systems that control these engines, it's very technical. And for children to be learning this at a very young age, it gives them a skill set that takes them throughout life. They could become the new Bugatti mechanic, they could become the new engineer at Ferrari. So these are the kinds of development grassroots that exposes children to technology. It exposes them to understanding engineering, which is things that you can't teach until you get to university, which shouldn't be the case.
Spoken like a true person who loves maths. I should have known. I should have known you're going to go into that whole engineering thing. So what else do you do then? Besides, okay, we'll get to work eventually. But like, do you cook?
Yes, I do.
Really?
I do.
Really? I just heard Sakina choking. Sakina, your wife, who is just sitting out just off camera, just really choked on something.
So here's a fun fact for you. I actually had an office birthday this week, and I baked one of my staff members a cake.
Really? You baked a birthday cake?
Yes.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So growing up, we were 4 boys in the household, so we did everything.
Yeah.
We could bake, we could cook, we could clean, we could understand what a braai needs to happen, when a potjie needs to be made, all of those unique South African things that we love to do, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And growing up with no sisters, we did everything in the house. We weren't spoiled by our mother. Our mother was looking at us and thinking, we're not doing that. You will do that.
You will
and that's how we learn.
What was mum like then? Handling 4 boys, how did she cope?
She didn't. She just left the problems to my dad, and my dad would just make his voice thick, and then everything was over.
Because you knew what was coming.
So I'm 175. My dad was 196. So he was a bit taller and bigger than what I am.
Yeah.
So it's a bit towering when a grown man like that looks over you and he gives you a word of discipline.
Yes. No, absolutely, absolutely. No, for sure. And then, well, mum would have been holding it all together, right, for everyone.
Of course. So she was also, one of the biggest fans of us and always supporting us, always attending sporting events, always coming out to the athletics events.
Yeah.
And, making the homemade sandwiches, bringing it so we can have something to eat after we compete.
I live for those, man.
And those are the good memories, man. And also the love. You can't replace that love.
No, in fact, that's part of the joy, the satisfaction that you get is when you're back home with your family and you're congratulating each other and sometimes even commiserating and saying, I know why you didn't get that one. You didn't win that one because, and then you recommit yourself.
That's it. And I think that's the beauty of sport, is that we go back, we reflect, and we set new standards, we set new goals, we set new positions we want to find ourselves in the next time we're back in that seat. So one of those ambitions is for me to go to Germany next year and represent South Africa again.
Oh, really? What's happening in Germany?
So Germany will be hosting the 2025 World Powerlifting Championships next year.
Okay.
And one of my goals is to be able to get into the top 10 next year and do a primetime lift-off against the best in the world.
Oh, now you're talking. You know that you're going to end up back on the show to talk about your German lifting experience, right?
And I look forward to that.
Okay, good. Now, I'm glad, and we're going to keep that date because I wish you only the best. Now, part of that journey also, just to go back into the lifting part of it, is you decided you were going to be more competitive if you entered at a lighter body weight.
Correct, yes.
So what was that journey like?
That was a bit of a daunting one because I was 128 kilograms.
Yeah.
And we dropped into the 105 class.
Oh,
so
wow. That's
getting all of that body weight off my body was not easy.
How long did it take?
I did the initial weight loss to under 120 to compete was 3 weeks. When I competed, I was 117.3 kilograms. Mm-hmm. And then 6 weeks thereafter, I was down to 105 kilograms.
Oh, crazy. But Tubbs, I don't know if you're hearing this story, brother. But I mean, that's insane. That amount of body weight to lose that. And still, you need to keep your strength.
That was the challenge, and that was also impacted from my performance. So that's also why at the South African Raw Powerlifting Champs this year, I only managed to play 6th. But I qualified for the South African team, so I made sure I made the South African standard.
Oh, yes. Okay, good. No, that's a big deal. Yeah. How then do you, like, what time do you get to train? Is it quite late? Because I usually
So it
only see you
depends.
quite
So
late.
if I'm not at the actual powerlifting gym, then I'll train in the morning or in the afternoon, depending on how my schedule works. But generally in the evening times between 6 and 8 would be my arrival time, because I have to drive all the way from Johannesburg South to Johannesburg North to come and train.
Wow. You see, and that takes commitment, man.
Of course. But fortunately for me, there's a little bit of a loophole, because my wife has to be at work twice a week in the north.
Yeah.
So I can just piggyback with those days and come and train and make her wait a little bit for me. It doesn't always sit well with her, but at least I get to train.
So, and there she was thinking that you were doing this because you actually care.
I do care. Don't get me wrong. You're putting me into trouble here now, Jack.
That's my job here on reality radio, is to get you into trouble. Yeah. And let's just talk a bit about work then.
Yes.
You have a focus in work about BEE.
Correct, yes.
Now, okay, let's explain that, because I'm thoroughly confused about some of the objectives behind BEE and the way I see it being executed, especially when it comes to government contracts and tenders.
Yes.
What are we actually talking about with BEE?
So the triple BE for South Africa, the Black Economic Empowerment Laws of South Africa, they were initially designed to enhance small business in South Africa and to create future economy opportunities for participation of Black South Africans.
Right.
Black South Africans, defined as in the codes of triple BE, applies to all designated groups, meaning the colored, the Black, the Indian community, as well as Chinese pre-1994. It also recognizes Black individuals from South Africa who are from a previously disadvantaged background. And what that brings to the front in this whole economic drive is to create enhancement and to create youth empowerment is one of the major drive tools of this particular engine.
Okay.
And the understanding and the application of it in the spirit of the law, if it is done correctly, it will enhance South Africa's economy and not only create jobs but future entrepreneurs, because that's what this is designed for.
And this is you're saying exactly what the president just said at the opening of Parliament. We're going to reflect on that a bit when we come back. First, a quick break. We'll be back with Reality Radio.
Reality Radio, as real as it gets, only on 919. We all love a good story. Stories of love and life. Stories that entertain and inspire. And the best stories are the ones that happen to be true. Every Friday night, Jack Devnarain is live in conversation with an iconic South African personality who shares the true stories that shape their remarkable lives. Join us for Reality Radio, as real as it gets. From 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. every Friday night, only on 919.
It is every Friday night. That's Reality Radio from 6 to 7 on 919. And tonight, Haroun Pietersen in the guest seat with me, Jack Devnarain. It is a pleasure to talk about your journey, your work, your training, your competition. Let's just go a little bit deeper into the BEE theme here, because obviously it's taken a certain direction of its own over the last, 15 years or so.
Correct, yes.
And you're looking at BEE specifically in terms of how it applies in the procurement of goods and services by government, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay, good. Now just explain why is that so important?
So I think one of the most important things is that government has targets within organizational structures that need to be spent every year. It's mandatory with their budgets. It's mandatory with the organizational requirements in terms of operations. So creating an environment where the right partners are linked to these organizations and benefiting from it. So in essence, it would then mean a micro enterprise, which is earning below 10 million rand on an annual basis would then qualify for government assistance through programs where the government would be redirecting funding into the business environment to create future entrepreneurs and also create opportunities for incubation where small businesses are born and then they are given the skills and the skill set in order to create a sustainable environment for these small businesses to grow and create jobs for the youth of South Africa.
And then where do you come in?
So in a sense, we are an advisory organization that guides the journey of ESD, which is what it's referred to. So economic supply development is the characteristic that we fall part, or we create a tool around that particular element of your BEE scorecard, where we use the monetary value that you were going to spend in the first place, which is already happening in your fiscal year, and it's happening in your financial period. So it's money that you are already going to spend, and it's a target that you need to attain through what you have generated as a revenue as a business.
Yeah.
So that resource, being able to redirect that resource in such a way that it creates new businesses, it creates new entrepreneurs. In the future, we don't want to create a job. We want to create a business that's going to create 20 jobs. So instead of tackling the unemployment issue with a drive for 1 or 2 jobs, we're creating 20 companies that can create 200 jobs.
This is interesting to me because I'm involved in conversations daily about the difference between working as a freelancer in the creative sector
Yes.
and how it's different from people who are considered to be employees protected by labor laws,
Yes.
working in the formal labor environment.
Yes.
So I can see how the instrument of BEE can be brought in to its best effective use in the formal labor sector, in formal employment.
Yes.
I'm struggling to see how those same goals can be met in the freelance world. How do you think that might be able to tie
So that's
together?
also where you tie together with people who have ideas, people who have creative minds. So for example, if it's tourism,
Right.
just as an example, where tourism can then take the creative side, which is the acting world or the acting fraternity, and use that tool to create more or generate more revenue within the tourism sector. So
Yeah.
cross-pollinating industries in order to create enhancement for other industries. So where industries can cross fields and create opportunities for each other. So for example, tourism would host an event for cultural practice where
Yeah.
all cultures come together and they create an event, say for example, where other cultures are traveling towards the journey of tourism and enhancing the South African tourism market, where it integrates the social aspect of what actors do and how actors bring their characters to life, as well as the cultural journeys throughout life, which integrates then into the tourism sector and also the tourism storytelling part, where tourism can be used as a tool where actors can portray the stories of real South Africans
Yeah.
to show and put on a show for the tourism environment to create more influx of travel, influx of holiday makers, because we are now then creating a culture over a period of time that is creating or enhancing the tourism requirement, because now we've got events, we've got all of these amazing people coming out to showcase their talents, and it creates a cross-diverse environment for tourism
Yeah.
and as well as the arts and cultures. So you bring and you kind of create an environment where both synergize and they work together in order to reach common goal. And commonality would then be where there is also room for enhancement for sponsorship and grants to be used in this way from a government standpoint
Yes.
to develop these industries and create those opportunities for entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
ideas to thrive.
You know, I'm just thinking about the grant situation that you mentioned earlier, because you would have maybe come across the story in the last week, 2 weeks, where the Minister of Arts and Culture released the list of people who had received COVID relief funding.
Yes.
Unfortunately, there was he created some confusion, I believe, where he also mentioned he's cleaning up shop. He wants to get rid of some of the mafia elements within the department, and some people have made a career out of simply receiving grants. And with that as a premise, when he led with that and then released the list, the assumption was that all the people on this list had wrongfully somehow benefited from some grant funding. So that's something we're still trying to undo, because one of the problems we picked up is that when grants are made, you have to apply certain criteria.
Yes.
Then the question becomes, who's sitting on the adjudication panel?
That's it.
Yes.
And that's also where the ED elements of BEE come in. So you can apply for an organizational requirement. So say, for example, you are in the information technology sector.
Right.
So the ICT sector has special requirements for spend and enhancement that has been introduced into that sector to create an environment where ICT companies are born and created and then incubated and pushed back into industry to create growth for the industry itself. So using those grants in such a way where people can motivate and write and tell their story is also a tool that we've created for organizations to use, where they find the right partners, identify the good stories, and identify the correct partners in that way that is pre-vetted, predetermined, and then you have an audit trail that is traceable for how these organizations tap into resources.
That is exactly the point. That's the question that everybody wants to have answered, because the issue isn't that there are people's names on a list. That's not the issue. That's public funding anyway.
Yes.
You know, there's got to be that transparent accounting function. What people are saying is that we got to be clear in understanding who received what and for what purpose.
That's right.
And so the deliverables that you're talking about have to be met.
That's it. And that's why we create sustainability. So that enables them to come back next year and say, I need more funding and these are the initiatives I would like to run. Yeah.
Are you excited about AI?
I am, because it can transform the landscape and how we do things.
Yeah.
It's a threat to some people in their perception because they don't understand it. So we always fear what we don't understand. And in my view, it is a tool that enhances ourselves. So where we would have spent 3 to 5 hours doing something, it could cut that exercise into 5 to 10 minutes. And what do? We then have a better quality of life because we spend less time worrying about details.
And then you can go to gym.
That's it. You see the winning ideas here. That's how we win back time for ourselves. And that's one of the things that's most important, I think, is winning back that time that gets stolen from us.
Yeah, the quality of life. I mean, we in 2024, we're looking at technology. We've got to be able to harness technology to serve the needs of our lives.
And that is exactly it. In understanding the purpose that you have for it. It can be destructive, but it can also be extremely efficient.
Where do you think the youth, in terms of this new technology, fit in? Are we giving them enough to see a brighter future, or are we just distracting them and are we dumbing them down to becoming slaves of the world of technology and, apps and games?
So one of the interesting things for me is that we have a corporate academy where we push 2,000 to 3,000 unemployed learners through every year.
Sure.
And getting to see these young people and their minds and how they operate, what they do, how they perceive technology. We started late. So we don't have that advantage that they do. They're growing up with these things. They understand it on a completely different level to us. They will blow you away. And the youth of South Africa being exposed to these tools, it's an important necessity for the leaders of the future, because they are the first-hand developers and they are basically going to shape the landscape for the future.
Absolutely.
Without them, we will get lost in the future.
So are you then excited about what prospects we have as a country going forward, economy, industry? What do you see ahead?
I'm extremely excited because a lot of our industries are becoming global leaders, and not only in the sense of the labor force anymore. We are the ideas, we are the future, we are driving in such a way that our ideas are being noticed, our people are being noticed, and our people are being brought up. For lack of a better description. So all of the professionals that work in South Africa are being taken away from South Africa by other organizations because that's how good we are.
And that's a threat in itself, isn't it?
Correct, but it also creates an environment for more of us to be birthed.
Yeah. Do you think, there must surely be room as well for a lot of the people who have been, they've been harvested almost, because we create fantastic, innovative thinkers and productive industrialists, and then they get taken away. Do you see them giving back? Do you see them?
There are certain instances where I see a major shift in development from people who have left the country and giving back to the country. So there are shifts where multinational companies that are sitting outside of South Africa, that have South African owners, are giving back to South Africans and enabling South Africans to to register for free courses, for example, where
you
you can
see,
go
yeah.
and study because of your South African background. And
Yeah.
those are tools that we use. So one of the interesting ones is also NLP. It's a neuro-linguistics programming approach where you reprogram how you think. Your
Yeah.
blocks, your challenges in your professional career,
Yeah.
all of those things can be reprogrammed into your brain. It just
I love
blows you
that.
away.
No, I love reading stuff on NLP. I'm sure many of our viewers, many of our listeners will also be familiar with what neurolinguistic programming is and what it does.
Yes.
How we can remap certain pathways in our brain.
It's absolutely phenomenal.
That's
and
crazy stuff. Hey?
And you know what it is? You were just bringing up the game subject. They actually make you play games.
oh,
It's
is
a
it?
part of the curriculum.
Oh, wow. So I wanted to ask then, is that if you were going to study something now to further yourself to be better and more efficient at the work that you do now, what would you study?
I've just completed a NLP coaching program, which is one of the cool ones that I did.
Oh, nice one.
So it enables you to help people that are struggling.
Yeah.
It enables you to see things that they might not see themselves. Through introspection and observation, you're then able to monitor and create a corrective pattern for them to follow. And then you basically take somebody that has challenges and you enhance them by eliminating those challenges and creating a better functioning professional environment and a better functioning professional in a holistic approach.
Did you try any of your newly acquired NLP techniques on your wife, Sakina? And did you get like serious disciplining for that?
I have tried, but she's also a psychology major, so it's a little bit of a
Psychology major. Oh,
it's a little bit of a challenge, you know.
So she can read you before you even get there.
That's the problem. You need to be really sharp.
But it is a fascinating field. So I mean, you're tracking how the impulses move around your brain and how it manifests in human behavior.
Correct, yes.
Yeah. So you've just finished that course.
Yes.
Are you applying some of its principles now
Of
in the work
course,
that
yes.
you do? Yeah?
It's one of those things that happen unconsciously. You're applying things that you learn and you realize, but hey, I've never done that before.
Yeah.
How did that happen? And then it's just the reflex that it becomes. It becomes a part of you.
I love that. And then while that's going on, you go to gym and you end up doing the simple, most basic movements with the heaviest weight possible.
Yeah, that's the back to basics, you know. We have to keep the basics going too.
I realize, well, every time I look at what powerlifters do compared to, for example, the weightlifters, I always think that the sport of powerlifting seems a lot more basic, isn't it?
No, and I think that's why it's better.
Yeah,
Because basic is you know, the SBD. We keep it simple.
Yes. Yes. Going back to your pronouns, buddy. Yeah, keep it. And what do you think then is the next frontier in terms of your studies?
So I'm looking at doing what's called a management development program studies, which is
Wow.
through Wits University, which is it's the highest level of qualification in the triple BE stream at the moment.
Okay.
And I think there's a lot of enhancement there to understand the models and understanding the spirit of the law and how it needs to be applied for the future of South Africa.
Oh, you see, that's already, I can see you tackling that, and I can see you changing your life, changing the way you work, and changing people's lives as well. So it's been absolutely amazing. Haroun Pietersen, my special guest tonight on Reality Radio. My name is Jack Devnarain. You guys have a wonderful weekend. Remember, join us again next Friday night from 6 to 7 on 919.